The beginning is with Proto taking a beating and almost dying. Someone tells him he's improved a lot in the last 2 years. Another says the rank test shouldn't be a problem now. A strange being says they're worried he'll destroy the arena now, but he says he's far from being on their level. The story says if you're going to chase your dreams, it's better to start young. That's how everyone thinks, especially for adventurers whose bodies are their tools of the trade. But even so, there are adults who can't give up on their dreams. At the guild, registrations are open for the promotion exam to ranker, and our protagonist arrives to pick up his test card. The receptionist recognizes him as a veteran. His name is Rick, and hers is Alyssa. The two used to work together, and she says she was surprised when he quit his administrative job and was even more shocked to hear Rick became an adventurer. He says he understands because, in this world, it's unthinkable to start this profession at 30. Normally you become an apprentice adventurer in your teens, train under Hank F, and 2 years later, you can take the Hanky exam. Then a drunk adventurer shows up, harassing Alyssa with very wrong intentions, but she politely rejects him. The jerk keeps insisting and even grabs her hand, telling her to shut up and obey. So Rick asks for calm, and gently places his hand on the guy's chest, and suddenly, the guy goes quiet and passes out. People around come to see the commotion and what happened. Rick says the alcohol probably knocked him out. He takes his test card and leaves, feeling sad because his number means to die twice in Japanese. Maguro. Going down the stairs, he meets Hanette and can't stop staring at her airbags, disguising it by talking about young adventurers overflowing with dreams and hopes. Hanette asks if that's why he's staring at her massive airbags. He says obviously not. We see the guy from before had his steel armor dented. He was a ranker adventurer wanted for assault. Our Rick already did the world a favor, so he leaves with that guy. What a pathetic fraud. As the tests progress, people find it strange that he's 32 and a rookie adventurer. In the mana capacity test, his is F-, but in the strength test with a green slime bag, which he's familiar with because his veteran trained with a golden slime bag for 2 years, making Rick punch it 50,000 times every single day. In the present, we see an 11-year-old boy with C-rank equivalent magic, a noble's son who shows off his power. But to Rick, he doesn't seem like much because his veteran used far more powerful fire magic and threw it at him. The old examiner looks at Rick's sheet and says he should quit, because he didn't train his mana and magic in his youth, so now he can't expect much, saying his time has passed. But Rick remembers all his effort and won't give up just because some disapprove. So he delivers a punch so strong it destroys the bag and breaks the wall with it. In the magic exam, he defends against 4th level composite nature magic, something even the annoying prodigy couldn't do. The mage tries using stronger magic on Rick, but it's useless. The first-class knight thought it was a joke when he heard about a guy who did that to a green slime bag and resisted 5th level magic. Someone taking a rank test being this strong? Impossible. Then he finds out Rick worked 14 years as a receptionist at the Tiger Road 5th Branch Guild. Rick tells Hanette he did well on the written test and got a 10 but is worried if he passed this first phase. Hanette comforts him, saying he's improved a lot in these 2 years. The noble brat Fred de Armut arrives, whining and crying that Rick stole his spotlight and his chance to show off. Then his sister comes to defend him, saying an old man almost 40 bullied and mistreated her little brother. The boy's lies irritate Rick. Ugh, seriously? She throws her glove at Rick and challenges him to a duel, but Rick doesn't understand why. Without realizing it, by picking up her glove, he accepts the duel as Hanette explains. They go to the arena, and the girl demands that the loser becomes the other's slave. Until they reach rank F, Rick is scared because she's a second-class knight, equivalent to a rank B adventurer. That said, he doesn't believe he has the strength to defeat her, but Renette knows he's more than capable and tells him to go easy. To encourage him, she says all his training was for this moment and reminds him he's part of the group said to be the strongest on the continent, the Fist of Oryxocum. So, in the fight against the noble girl, he just dodges her fast attacks, which to him are very slow because his combat standards are too high due to his group. She doesn't understand how a rank F can be so lucky and is humiliated in a way I wouldn't even leave the house after. And you'd do the same. As for the deal she proposed, She just pretends it never happened and runs away even faster than when she was fighting. Then Hanette says the other group members are coming. Broston and everyone. By defeating the supreme monster, Kaiser al-Sapi, one can obtain any wish, the Akashic records. Whoever achieves this can have any treasure. This has been Rick's dream since childhood. Alice says they'll announce the preliminary test results. If the card glows blue, it means the examiner passed. The next day, all who passed will move to the second test, a simulated battle. Rick is worried if he'll pass or not. Ronette tells him if he fails, his training will triple. But thankfully, he passes. Leaving, they run into the noble who reeks of strong cologne. He's already hitting on Ronette, wanting something perverted. He says he's Raster de Armut, the noble of the north, the eldest son, and grabs her hand, saying he'll take her as his second wife. Bold guy. Shameless. Rick steps in to defend her, saying he can't let a stranger harass his girlfriend. He won't accept it. The guy looks at Rick's test card and insults him for his age, revealing he passed the ranker test at 14, that they're nothing alike, and that he's now a rank A examiner for the simulated battle test. Hanette firmly holds Rick's arm, saying she won't go anywhere with Haster because she already has his love, and tells the noble to leave because his cologne stinks. Later, Raster drinks angrily, furious at Rick. His foolish brothers arrive, crying about the same nearly 40-year-old man. The eldest brother is stunned. How dare a commoner nobody make the Armut family's children cry like this? Now the fight is on. The next day, Rick meets his examiner, the first person there who respects and admires his courage for starting adventuring at this age, because he also started late, at 24. Now, after 20 years, he's become a rank B adventurer. But his big dream is to one day reach rank A. This makes Rick happy, seeing someone in the same situation succeed. Meanwhile, Raster was listening and goes to talk to Rick's examiner. Rick is happy his examiner is a kind guy, but his joy disappears when a change is announced. Now his examiner will be Raster de Armut. The excuse? The others suddenly got sick. Yeah, right. The other participants say it's over. Raster, the man of 1,000 skills, is also known as the rank F Crusher. He abuses candidates with his magic, not even giving them a chance. But the Noble brothers set a trap for Rick so he can't even take the exam, teleporting him to an isolated place. Hanette is furious, slashing the wall, grabbing the Hellspawn child, and demanding where Rick is. She even cuts the kid's eyelashes and says, "Next time it'll be his eye." The kid panics and says Rick is somewhere within a 100-meter radius. Then the elite Diarmut guards arrive to beat him up, so he fails the second exam, bragging that his strength equals rank B. But then Rick's group arrives, showing their might. Rick lies, saying they're just warming up with the guys, and tells the butler to run if they value their lives. The guy attacks, but it's useless. His sword even breaks. He tries to punch, but his hand shatters. Boston heals him and even gives him tips to improve as an adventurer. The half-dwarf, half-elf joins the fun, shooting non-lethal bullets that just knock the guys out. Then the donkey guard threatens the little vampire girl's life, telling everyone not to move. Rick warns him he's screwed because Aliceret is strong. Rick says it's just a friendly spar to ease tensions, but the guy hurts her anyway. Enraged, she explodes everything around her. Those guards got wrecked by her 7th level magic. The butler says she's only 10 but is the most powerful vampire mage prodigy, the demon child of devastation, Aliceret Drakau. The blonde is the half-elf, half-dwarf who, despite looking like a teen, is 50 and has techniques a millennium ahead of his time. The world's greatest weaponsmith, the millennial workshop Mizet Eldorf OR, has abnormal physical strength and intelligence matching his power, possessing every support magic in existence. The wise beast, Brawstone Ashwork. 3 rank S adventurers, plus Ronette, also rank S, form the continent's most powerful and legendary group, the Golden Fist of Zukum. The old man doesn't even want to fight anymore, and will retire after this humiliation. Rick returns to Hanette and finds Leroux, the examiner injured by Raster, who took his place in the second test. He says he came from a poor area where kids dream of being adventurers but lack the means. His dream is to build a school for them. The noble laughed at him. abused him physically and mentally, and said if kids are taught by a third-rate old man, they'll be nothing. This makes Rick furious, and he vows to pay Raster back in kind. We see Adolf, a guy who breaks the fourth wall, explaining the four great fundamentals: physical strength, body control, mana capacity, and magic control. Together, these influence an adventurer's power. Adolf can visualize others' stats. When he checks Raster's, he confirms he's worthy of rank A. But when he looks at Rick's, it's bizarre. Stats beyond imagination, making Adolf collapse because his eyes can't handle the power. Alice meets Hannette, who says she saw her with her veteran, Rick, and that they worked together at the guild. Reception. This anime is shameless with its watermelon physics. Both characters have the biggest airbags in the series. Ranette introduces herself as part of Rick's adventurer group, Aliceret calls her, and Ranette invites Alyssa. The blonde invites Hannette to sit with him, but she knows he's a pervert and refuses. He sees Alice and invites her. You know why, but Ranette saves her from the crime about to happen. Broston asks how their promising old rookie is doing. Ranette says he'll pass easily, but Alyssa worries because of the rank F crusher, Raster. The orc says if he's a ranker, Rick has no problem. Raster's brothers are already rooting for him to beat Rick for their past humiliations. The kid even shows up all beat up thanks to Ranette. Raster boasts again, saying not to compare him to past opponents. Please, just let him lose already. Rick asks why he became an adventurer. Raster says even as a noble, retiring as an adventurer boosts your social status. He just wants an easy life and is tired of fighting and effort. Rick says he won't lose to a guy like him. The fight starts with Raster's level 1 ice magic as a warning. Rick stays calm, following Hannette's advice to analyze his opponent. Raster then sets Rick on fire, but it does nothing. Alyssa is worried, but Boston explains this is nothing to Rick because, in his training, since his mana capacity is low, due to not training it in youth, he compensated with the other three fundamentals. In his physical training, Rick had to run to a village with 100-kilo iron balls chained to his feet, just beginner level. He also had to escape a monster-infested forest. Miset trained his magic control, Aliceret played by throwing spells at him, and Hannette handled his body control. Alyssa is surprised. She thought Hannette was just a maid, but Miset says that's just her style. Broston says Rick is already at rank S level like them. Ranette adds he doesn't realize it because Broston kept telling him to improve more, crushing his self-esteem. Meanwhile, Raster keeps trash-talking Rick about age and status, saying nobles like him have the right to torment him. He throws a rock attack, but Rick blocks it bare-handed. Raster tries a magic-enhanced punch, but Rick's punch stops him cold, sending him flying. Rick says despite Raster's high magic, his fundamentals are sloppy, making him imprecise. Raster thinks Rick is just lucky, mocking him for being inferior. Rick asks what his motivation for adventuring is. Rick answers that, like Lorode, who Raster hurt, he has a strong dream. Raster asks what it is. Rick says, to defeat the world's strongest monster, Kaiser Sapiet. The brat laughs, mocking him. Raster says that's just a children's tale. He traps Rick with 7th level magic and summons a mega wooden Zord, trying to intimidate him, an 8th level power. But with a basic arrow spell, Rick is about to make history. Their attacks collide. Rick humiliates Raster, destroys his monster, and sends him flying into the stands, knocking him out. His group congratulates him on his victory and fantastic move. Now he realizes he's gotten really strong, and thanks his veterans, Raster appears with his brothers, completely wrecked. His sister Angelica tells him to rest, but he refuses. Rick asks how it feels to lose to a third-rate old man like him, making him furious. But Rick is so kind he even teaches Raster how to train his magic properly. Leaving, Raster says he'll be Rick's examiner next time and vows to win. His brothers follow, but Angelica stops and politely bids Rick farewell. Seems she knows how to be decent. The group and Alyssa wait, feasting, sure Rick passed. Hannette tells Rick he's much calmer than in the prelims. He says he was just remembering things. Rick recalls his journey to becoming an adventurer. As a child he loved the story that whoever defeated the great monster Kaiser would obtain a treasure, granting any wish, the Akashic Records. The boy who dreams of becoming an adventurer today might get that treasure. This was Rick's most precious dream, driving him forward. He even told his parents he wanted to be an adventurer like Yamato from stories. But they discouraged it, saying it was too dangerous. His father told him to choose a stable job instead. At the doctor, he learns he has an innate ability factor, but it won't manifest through training. He must wait, so he spends days at school with classmates, waiting to see what power he'll awaken. A year passes, and Rick starts to think his ability might never awaken. He was just a child. By high school, a classmate tells him some people have the factor, but never manifest an ability. They even suggest he become an adventurer without one, like many others. But Rick says it's not that simple for him. He wants to be like the hero Yamato. As an adult, he gets a job as a guild receptionist, a stable, decent job, just as his father advised in childhood. He spends years serving adventurers, working hard, but still clings to his dream, training in hopes of awakening his ability. Along the way, he meets Alyssa, who leaves all men smitten. No surprise there. He keeps living with his aging parents, but holds on to a spark of hope, remembering his dream of becoming an adventurer. An old friend of Rick's becomes a rank B adventurer, and flaunts his success. Rick hides his frustration and envy, congratulating him while drowning his sorrows in alcohol that night. Wandering the streets, dizzy, he reflects on 14 years as a receptionist, abandoning his dream. His life is stable, his income secure, no real problems. Then he hears screams about monsters in the city and rushes to investigate. A giant troll appears where it shouldn't be. Suddenly, Hanette shows up, though Rick doesn't know her yet, and he tries to protect her, only for her to effortlessly slaughter the monster. She thanks him kindly for trying to save her. They walk together, introducing themselves. Hanette reveals she's a rank S adventurer. Rick learns that because they're too strong, their records are kept only by the guild's main office. Rick shares his dream of becoming an adventurer, asking if starting at 30 is even possible. Hanette bluntly says he'll fail. He didn't train his mana in youth, a requirement for adventurers. Devastated, Rick forces a smile, saying he's relieved to let go of a pointless dream. To lighten the mood, he jokes about grabbing a meal together, but she actually agrees, shocking him. She even says she's free the next day and asks if he is too. Today's the day, big guy. The next night, Rick is over the moon about his dream date with a stunning rank S adventurer. As he walks, giddy, he imagines things going well, maybe even dating her if he's lucky. But more monsters attack the city. Hanette handles some, but others overwhelm her. The Razorblade Maiden, Hanette felt, begins slaughtering them, until trauma hits. She senses a powerful magical presence, recalling her village's destruction. A giant wolf monster seizes the chance to strike, but Aid, Rick's friend, arrives to help. Chunla Chupi and a random mage join as reinforcements. Rick, despite claiming he gave up his dream, envies them for being adventurers. Hanette warns they're not enough. Her trauma has summoned a dragon. Its magic paralyzes her control. The dragon appears under the moonlight. The reason monsters fled here. Zaid says low-rank adventurers should flee from dragons, but the useless mage attacks anyway. The dragon traps them with a barrier. They brace for death, until Rick steps forward. If we're dying, I'll die fighting like an adventurer. His courage inspires the others. They attack, but it's futile. Zaid shields them with an iron body, but they're doomed. Then Rick stands, declaring he still has a dream to fulfill. The dragon strikes, and finally, Rick's ability awakens. Hanette sees mana overflowing from him, visible to the naked eye. The dragon fires flames and lasers, but Rick blocks with a mana shield and counters, landing a fatal blow. He saves everyone but collapses from exhaustion and injuries. He wakes in pain, with Hanette at his side, scolding him for overexertion. She reveals his magic circuits were destroyed. He was practically dead. How long was I out? A week. Hanette waited all that time to invite him to her group, the Fist of Gold Zun. Their goal aligns with his dream, to defeat Kaiser Sapiet. This confirms Kaiser's existence. She says his courage awakened his power. Now he can grow stronger and fight alongside them as an adventurer. Emotional, Rick reflects on his journey. Back in the present, Rick passes the simulated battle test, officially becoming an adventurer. He thanks his past self for never giving up. LaRoe visits Rick's group's mountain home, saying he'll soon be discharged from the hospital. He mentions interest in joining their group, shocking Rick. LaRoe arrives in his best gear, as Rick warned. The place looks like a Demon King's castle. Rick opens the giant gate, revealing a stunning, flower-filled estate. LaRoe asks why he needs gear if there are no monsters. Rick replies, "So I don't end up in a coffin." Alyssa appears, and LaRoe hopes his daughter grows up like her, happy and healthy, though Alyssa immediately zaps him with magic. Thankfully, Rick blocks it and scolds her. Hannette threatens to cut her snack budget to repair the wall, leaving Alyssa remorseful. LaRoe meets the other members. Misette, the weaponsmith, who tests a crazy bazooka, and Broston, who agrees to train him, only for LaRoe to tumble down a hill with iron balls chained to his feet. A giant boar, Hannette's dinner catch, saves him. "Thanks for saving me from certain death." Hannette mentions Broston's training often nearly kills Rick, horrifying LaRoe. Broston appears, grinning. Round 2 starts now. Later, exhausted, LaRoe learns never to trust the group's insanity. Over tea, LaRoe calls Hannette a great girl, making Rick blush. "Do you two have something?" Rick denies it, calling himself a boring 30-year-old. LaRoe laughs. His own wife is 20 years younger. Age doesn't matter if feelings align. At dinner, LaRoe advises Rick to help Hannette prep food to grow closer. The smitten fool complies. LaRoe notes Rick's rare innate ability. Broston adds that even without it, Rick is rank S tier, but when his reckless soul activates, he surpasses the entire group. Rick asks if LaRoe, a Guild Central employee, knows about the 6 magic jewels from Yamato's legends. They're needed to open the portal to the Spiral of Origin, where Kaiser sleeps. Misette says they activate every 200 years, and the cycle is now. LaRoe doesn't know but will check confidential guild files. Rick then asks for love advice, helping Hannette backfired. "She's perfect at everything." Cut to a guild where a girl complains about cleaning duty. She's an adventurer who could be fighting monsters. Rick, Broston, and Alyssa arrive, needing a 4th member for a high-rank quest. The guildmaster suggests the girl, Ray, who assumes it'll be easy. Seeing an old man, a kid, and Rick, they're searching for a magic jewel. Alyssa senses one, nearby. Meanwhile, at the castle, Misette catches the pervy Loire trying to peek under her skirt with an invisibility gadget. She slices it to pieces. The group encounters a wyvern. Ray, who mocked Rick earlier, is now terrified. Broston's plan? Just punch them! Rick shields Ray from collateral damage as Broston and Alyssa obliterate the monsters. A red wyvern, almost dragon tier, appears. Rick one-shots it, shocking Ray. The next day, Ray rethinks her life after witnessing the continent's strongest, rank S group in action. They obtain the red jewel, Crimson Bloom, and use its resonance to locate the others. Maset's earth magic maps the next location. Aractopia, a martial arts kingdom famed for its Colosseum. There, a girl resembling Angelica de Armut wins a match. Flashback 400 years. A desert kingdom's 4th king, Alexander Aractopia, built the Colosseum. He fought unarmed, winning 10,001 battles, turning the kingdom into a powerhouse. Present day, the group admires Alexander's statue. Broston wishes he'd fought him. Rick jokes they'd devastate the kingdom. Hannette explains its combat-centric culture. They ask locals about the jewels but scare them off. A suspicious man harasses a furry girl. Broston intervenes, demanding info. The thug challenges him to a back-alley fight, and loses badly. Now, submissive. The thug, Gold, and the girl, Militia, act like nothing happened. Rick shows the Crimson Bloom, and the two recall seeing similar stones but can't remember where. A parade announces the Fist King tournament, drawing 500,000 spectators. Yearly, the reigning champion? Kelvin Urwolf, a buff furry loved by the masses. The group spots a jewel like theirs on his belt, the Sovereign's Gold. Rick and Hannette visit his academy, but Rick's nerves make him awkward. Broston steps in, demanding the belt. Kelvin refuses. It's a national treasure. Really, he just wants to fight Broston. He challenges him to enter the tournament and win the title. Broston agrees. Kelvin senses these three are beyond comprehension. Yeah, buddy, you're dealing with the continent's top-rank S adventurers. Now they must compete in preliminaries to advance to the Fist King tournament. But first, they need a pug list certificate and must win 40 fights in the semester's preliminaries. Rick competes in the Western League, while Broston takes the Eastern League, with his lackey Gold as his guide. Now, Rick must pass a simulated battle test to earn his pug list certificate. He doesn't need to win, just perform well enough to qualify. And his opponent, my friends, is none other than Angelica de Armut, the bratty noble girl. She arrived confidently, but seeing Rick, the almost 40-year-old, who's actually 32, triggered her trauma. Some old men cheer for her as a promising rookie. She goes all out from the start due to her history with Rick, but suddenly trips. Repeatedly, Rick is sweeping her legs at an absurd speed, humiliating her completely. Angelica is utterly demoralized. This is one of Rick's 8 techniques for holding back. When he finally gets serious, Angelica surrenders immediately. Later, she confronts Rick, crying, asking how many times he'll humiliate her before he's satisfied. This makes Rick look terrible. He suggests grabbing a meal instead. She must be hungry. They go to a restaurant where the furry Militia, from earlier, works as a waitress. She asks where Broston is, and Rick says he's in the Eastern League. She looks heartbroken, clearly, smitten at first sight with the big guy. The next day, Rick faces his first opponent, a cheater who's never been caught. The guy hides a strength-amplifying stone in his shoe sole. Who'd think to check there? But he didn't expect Rick's freakish durability. His arm bends on impact. Ouch! Rick advises him to train his body before relying on enhancers. The guy shatters boulders, but Rick's body is ironclad, using another, holding back technique. Rick wins with just the wind pressure from his punch. The cheater drops like a rock. This year's tournament is insane. There's even a red light district with women displayed like products. Disgusting. A man enters a brothel, where a red lizard man, Geif, complains about his job. Shadow company? More like a drag, he mutters. Angelica wins her preliminaries swiftly. Fodder opponents. Hannette and Rick congratulate her. With 40 straight wins, she advances to the Block League. Now Rick must do the same, in 4 days. But he's rank S, no sweat. Angelica doubts it though, since venues change daily, some impossibly far. But Rick isn't human. He's the newest rank S. Hannette reminds him of a fight at Green Hill Arena in 10 minutes. 30 km away, Rick flash runs. There, leaving Angelica stunned. Hannette offers to carry her, but she vomits from the speed. Rick wins, but accidentally buries his opponent. Gotta control my strength better. Cue montage, Rick steamrolls every fight. Over tea, Angelica confesses she must win the tournament to stop a certain man. Hannette is intrigued. When asked where Rick is, Hannette says he's jogging to Tronia, 600 kilometers round trip. Angelica isn't even surprised anymore. She wonders why Hannette sticks with Rick. Doesn't she hate the rumors? Hannette shrugs. I don't mind. I care for him. Subtle romance alert. They're roped into waitressing, with Angelica reluctantly in a bunny outfit. A clown from episode 1 harasses her, calling her flat, and gets wrecked by both girls. Rick arrives, stunned by Hannette's goddess tear glow. Love is in the air. Broston dominates the Eastern League, while Rick aces the West. The announcer, another airbag lady, hypes the Block League. Angelica fights differently, tense, but wins. Rick KOs his opponent gently. Taylor Bridge, a giant, overwhelms Angelica in one hit. Post-loss, Rick visits her in the infirmary. She confesses, the lizard man Snape is her fiancé. Her family's finances forced the engagement. Rick is baffled. Do you even like him? Obviously not. Investigating Snape, she found his company, Dragona Luta, nearly bankrupt. He's rigging the tournament via sponsor privileges to claim the prize money. Rick offers to train her. Cue Rocky montage with 30-kilo iron balls chained to her body. Don't drop the strengthening magic, or you'll die, Rick warns, dragging her at supersonic speeds. She screams, realizing the hell she signed. Up 4. By day 5, she flees to a secluded diner, only for Rick to pop up at the window. He relates, having died repeatedly during his own training. Angelica admits she hates noble life. She wants to be the first female top-tier knight. Rick adapts her sword technique into unarmed combat, with Hanette teaching her thread cutter, slicing, rocks bare-handed. In the block league, Angelica dominates, but trauma turns her feral. She doesn't even remember the fight. The group regroups, dismissing false leads about the 6 jewels. The tournament begins. Random matchups suspiciously avoid pitting Broston against Geif early. Geif mocks Angelica. "Don't worry, I won't ruin your pretty face. Snape needs you fertile." Furious, she fights but can't pierce his scales, until she disables her magic and uses thread cutter. The crowd erupts. Even Snape is shocked. No blade scratches Geif, but Geif, enraged, brutalizes her. Rick intervenes, shoe throwing included. Post-match, Rick vows to wreck Geif tomorrow. Angelica apologizes for wasting his training. Rick blames himself for underestimating Geif. Semi-finals, Rick versus Geif. The lizard taunts him about Angelica's lack of talent. Rick humiliates him, restricting himself to Angelica's level. Geif drinks dragon's blood juice, transforming, but Rick counters with damage dispersion, taking 0 hits. Hanette's group roasts Geif. "Talent? You're mediocre." Rick, trained with monsters. Geif goes berserk, using Dragon Rage, but Rick demonstrates Angelica's potential future strength. 1 year of training cocks victory. He finishes Geif with a flawed thread cutter. "Lucky you're not fighting Angelica. Next year," Snape reflects. Maybe he wanted Geif to lose, resenting how his talent ended his own career. Final match, Broston versus Kelvin the Beast, Urwolf. Their clash shakes the arena, until Geif, still drugged, rampages. Kevin stops him mid-air, praising his punch, before one-shotting him. The fight is postponed. Later, Rick jogs past a mountain that, if you squint, resembles Hanette's peaks. Priorities man. He spots Kelvin training, smashing rocks. They spar briefly. Kevin is shocked by Rick's strength. As they rest, Kevin prepares to share his backstory. He grew up in the slums. Fighting was his entertainment, but he reached a point where no real challenge remained, so he came to Aractopia. At first there were decent fights, but he became champion effortlessly. Twice. Though it didn't feel right, his coach was happy, so he ignored his doubts. All that remained was to train harder and grow stronger. One night he overheard his coach talking about declining audience interest. Kevin's fights ended too quickly. The coach refused to ask Kevin to throw matches, but the gym was struggling. For his 3rd championship, Kevin intentionally lost to a weaker opponent to make fights more exciting. From then on, he held back to entertain crowds, winning 3 straight titles. Now, he can't take fights seriously. His restraint draws crowds and keeps the gym profitable. Rick says being strong is tough but promises tomorrow will change Kevin's mindset. There'll be no holding back, and Rick looks terrified because Broston will demolish him. The long-awaited fight begins, with magic barriers protecting spectators after Geif's rampage. Kevin opens with Drilling Fang, spinning his arm like a drill for extra force. But Broston isn't even trying. He blocks everything effortlessly. Kevin asks if Rick told him the truth. Broston nods. He said you hold back to help your gym. Kevin panics. If he fights seriously, his past deception will be exposed. Broston reassures him. With me, you can go all out. No consequences. Admiring Kevin's showmanship but pitying his restraint, Broston decides to match his level. He'll use only 2 fingers and won't move from his spot. The humiliation is unreal. Kevin attacks again, but Broston blocks with 2 fingers. Even Drilling Fang fails pathetically. Thrown to the ground, Kevin realizes Broston is toying with him to make it look competitive. His coach screams, "Why are you holding back? I trained you to be the strongest." Kevin finally snaps. He removes his jacket. Time to get serious. He lands a punch that forces Broston to block with his whole hand. "Did you use all 5 fingers?" Kevin asks. "Only the necessary force," Broston replies, still immobile. The crowd erupts. Their champion was faking it all along. Now, there's no turning back. Kevin chants a spell, unleashing 5th-level composite magic. Inferno Wave. Angelica gasps. Orcish affinity for complex magic is rare. Rick says Kevin trained years to break his limits. Broston blocks with a magically reinforced boulder, then shatters it with a punch. Kevin traps him in wooden binds, but Broston breaks, free effortlessly. Enraged, Kevin activates his ultimate technique, 8th-level magic, Draconic Cataclysm. A meteor-sized boulder forms above the arena. The crowd trembles in fear. Rick pales. Now Broston won't hold back. With one punch, Broston obliterates the meteor. The shockwave flattens the arena. Angelica's jaw drops. Kevin, panting, has exhausted his magic. Broston raises a thumb, an orcish gesture meaning, no defense, just fists. Kevin smiles. This is the fight he's craved. They trade blows, shaking the city. Kevin's ribs crack under Broston's strikes. With his last strength, Kevin launches Spiral Fist, but it barely nudges Broston. As a sign of respect, Broston ends it with one final punch. Post-fight, Kevin reads newspapers criticizing his past deception. Children outside mimic his moves, proof his legacy isn't ruined. His coach embraces him. "You're like a son to me." Broston interrupts, checking on Kevin, who refuses healing. "Pain makes me stronger." Meanwhile, Rick locks himself in his room, terrified of fighting Broston. Angelica yells at him until Snape intervenes with reverse psychology. Thousands invested in this fight. Don't disrespect them by quitting. Rick finally agrees, but is still shaking as he enters the arena. The battle begins. Rick dodges Broston's attacks using air cushion magic. Instant casting, no incantations. Angelica realizes this is a clash beyond human comprehension. Broston praises Rick's growth. His training plan worked perfectly. In a flashback, Broston recalls his lonely childhood as an abnormally intelligent orc. After his tribe died in a landslide, he felt nothing, until an old adventurer inspired him. Together, they founded Fist of Oryx-Saucum, seeking warriors to defeat Kaiser Sapiet. Back, in the fight, Rick activates his innate ability, Reckless Soul, his version of Kaioken. Angelica gapes as his power surges. The true battle begins. Rick's final punch shatters the arena walls. Broston grins. This is the equal he dreamed of. Realizing this, he notices he focused too much on the idea of an equal fistfight, but his friends trust and believe in him. Now he sees he hasn't been alone for a long time. The battle reaches another level of intensity, both panting and giving. They're all. Kevin says the next strike will decide everything. The rank S fighters clash. Smoke fills the air, the outcome unclear. Who will prevail? Rick and Broston are both spent. Rick says, "You're amazing. Even after all this, I still couldn't win," collapsing to the ground. Broston disagrees. "You walked alongside my dream and delivered results." Then he falls too, declaring Rick the winner. "I'd call it a draw." Post-battle, Rick wakes in bed after 3 days unconscious. Hannette notes last time he used Reckless Soul, he slept for a week. Training yielded similar results. The champion's belt rests beside him. Broston insists, "I consider you the winner," but Rick refuses. Officially, Broston won by falling last, but Rick knows if his mentor had used healing or defensive magic, victory would have been impossible. Broston thanks the Fist of Oryx-Saucum for helping fulfill his dream. Rick learns his special training with the other three was a surprise to give Broston a worthy fight. Their mission in Aractopia is complete. They've obtained the second of 6 jewels, the Sovereign's Gold. 1 step closer to facing Kaiser Sapiet. They even craft a fake jewel for the champion's belt, enchanted to pass inspection. Angelica pretends not to witness the forgery. That's a crime, Rick. Rick recalls something. The group's founder, Reinhard, must be over 200. He lived through Yamato's era. Broston says his true age is unknown, but Reinhard credits his innate life-extending ability. He's been hiding from his publisher, missing his book deadline. Snape tells Kevin that since Broston and Rick withdrew as pugilists, the championship defaults to him. Kevin hates the idea, but the people need a champion. Broston bids farewell to his devoted fans. Militia vows to marry him when he returns. The bald guy promises to train hard, and next time call him best man. Nobody gets it. Amid tears, the group departs with travel snacks. Broston reflects. His dream came true. They say goodbye to Angelica, who must return home, finally. Alice makes her promise to visit. Angelica agrees, adding, Broston will. Train her then. Rick drops his boxes in shock. You want to die? She declares she'll surpass Rick one day. He smiles, eagerly awaiting her return. Rick runs home. Not his usual 500 kilometer, but a full 2,800 kilometers. Angelica notes, even if he arrives in 3 days, the carriage gifts will take months. Zert solves it by muscle-enhancing the horse to run like Flash. Hannette asks when they'll visit the hot springs. Rick insists he didn't win, despite Broston's claim. Misit proposes a race. If Rick reaches home first, he gets the trip with Hannette. Otherwise, 100x harder training. Rick begs for a head start, promises Hannette the trip, then bolts. Hannette and Alice jet off after saying goodbye. Rick reflects. It took time, but he achieved his dream of becoming an adventurer. His next dream awaits. He thanks his younger self with a mental high five. Being in his 30s doesn't matter. It's never too late. That's a wrap. What a fight. Broston and Rick going all out, both left exhausted. Rick still has room to grow, and that's exciting. If you enjoyed the anime or this recap, drop a like, subscribe, and hit the bell for updates. When Season 2 arrives, I'll be here recapping The 30-Year-Old Rookie Adventurer. Thanks for the support. Catch you next time.